This is a true horrifying story, part 54. This story was submitted to me by someone I know very well. I want to stay away from the real names of the people from this story. This story took place in Dubai a couple of years ago. There's an area in Dubai called Al-Rashdiya. In that area, there used to be a center for ruqya, which can also be called an exorcism center. There were many sheikhs there that used to treat people that were infected with black magic and also treat people that were possessed by jinns. This center was for charity. They took no fees to treat people. The narrator of the story, the person I know, he was just a volunteer in that center. He's not really experienced with severe cases. One day, they received a call from a family that had a very tough case. This special case needed its own appointment. Many exorcists were appointed for this specific session. It was a Palestinian man that was possessed by a jinn that was a ashiq. And this man was brought in speaking Urdu. For those who don't know, Urdu is not a common language to be spoken by Palestinians. Urdu is a language that is used in some parts in India and Pakistan. The man and his family were never taught nor spoke this language before. So the sheikhs immediately knew that the jinn that possessed that man was an Urdu speaker. They put him in a room and all he was doing was screaming words in Urdu. They started the ruqya session and it took 8 men to hold this man down on the chair. He was shouting and laughing the whole time, ridiculing the exorcists. It's a common behavior from jinns when they possess humans. He started mumbling words in Urdu that only one of the exorcists understood. I love this man. You are weak. He will not be back to this place again. Took them hours of suffering. This man was out of control. He was possessed by a power they have never witnessed before. After hours of suffering, he was released. And then they asked him if he remembers what happened. But the man didn't know where he was. They asked the family to come back for another session in a few days, but they never came back. They tried to reach out to that family, but no one knows what happened to them. That was the last time this man and his family were ever seen. This is a true horrifying story of Hamdan School in Uganda. This school is an Islamic boarding school for girls. It was donated by one of the royal family members of Dubai 22 years ago. This story was submitted by Afra. An Arabic girl back in 2009 was a student at this high school. She knew that the school was haunted and that there was a graveyard right behind the school. And she heard rumors of many incidents where girls were possessed by jinns. But everything else about the school seems fine, because it's one of the most successful Islamic boarding schools in that region. But that does not deny the fact that jinns may live inside the school. Afra experienced something, and being in her 30s today, this one incident will always haunt her. Afra had a mutual friend that was a student in that same school. She was regularly possessed by one jinn. Out of all the religious students, she was one of the very few that didn't really care about the Islamic education. She always used to party, drink, hangs out with guys, and the jinn that used to possess her was surprisingly a Muslim. He was just furious that she used to disobey her family and her religion. They brought her to one of the halls in the school and they started a ruqya session. Afra was there witnessing the whole thing. After many attempts of trying to make this jinn speak, he finally responded. I am possessing this girl because she disobeys. I will not leave until she changes. They were all shocked and they proceed with the recitation. The moment they stop, just for a few seconds, the possessed girl stares at Afra. Who is this girl? Why is she very quiet? She is very pretty, very nice, but I cannot go near her. Afra froze in her place. She felt numb all around and she was not able to move a single muscle. The Imam was intrigued, so he asks the jinn, why can't you go near her? What is stopping you? It was a back and forth questioning. The jinn kept saying, I can't. Why can't you? Until it responded. There is someone in front of her with light. What does that mean? They ask. There is someone in front of her with light. I can't go near her. They couldn't interpret what this was exactly. It could have been the veil of light from the adhkar. But regardless, Afra will never forget the demon's eyes staring deep into her soul wanting to possess her. This is a true horrifying story of the most haunted house in Libya, Hosh al-Sittin. Hosh means house and Sittin means 60. This house is known amongst the majority of Libyan people. It's been abandoned for many years and it's the only house in that whole deserted area, and it is infested with jinns. There are hundreds of stories about this abandoned house, and everyone that's been there experienced horrible things. There are stories about people that have spent nights inside this house and they died a few days later. Whatever entity lives inside that house does not want you in there, period. In haunted places, jinns don't usually intimidate their guests right away. But in this place, people have reported children and baby cries minutes after walking inside. Many years ago, there was a group of soldiers that temporarily camped behind the house for a few days. There was a military procedure going on in that area. They didn't look at the house, nor did they bother going anywhere near it. On the first day, late at night, the men started hearing screams of a little boy shouting for help inside that house. They were all terrified from the noises. They knew that there was no boy inside that house. That was a jinn. All of them came close and they flashed their torches at the house from a distance. But there was no sign of anyone inside. One of the soldiers ridiculed the situation and he goes inside. "See, there's nothing that can harm us," he said. Later on that night, the noises eventually stopped. A few weeks later, that same man was driving down the road of that house. It was dark and it was raining heavily outside. He sees a cat in the middle of the street and he swerves. The car immediately loses control and one of the axles breaks. The car wouldn't start. He didn't know where he was exactly. So he hops out the car and there it is. The house, Hosh al-Sittin, was right in front of him. He knew the close call of a fatal car crash could have been intentional. No one knows. Do they want him back inside? Or did they want to kill him because of what he did? This is a true horrifying story of a real devil's game. We've all heard about games such as the Ouija board, the corners game, the elevator game, and much more. From a religious perspective, these are not games. They are rituals or sihr that summon jinns. There's a game, or more like a ritual, called Charlie Charlie. It may be as dangerous or even more dangerous than the Ouija board. Charlie Charlie involves a board or a paper and two pencils. Two no's, two yeses, and two pencils balanced on top of each other intersecting. Back in 2015, the Charlie Charlie game was a trend on Vine. Users would play this game and post their reactions. Now, most of them were setups, they were fake. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the game doesn't work, because some of the vines were real. The game requires a spoken ritual and of course a welcome call to summon a jinn. I don't want to show you the details on how to start playing the game, but I will show you a clip of how this ritual looks like when a jinn is playing with you. Warning, I'm about to show you real footage of someone playing this game.
Charlie, Charlie, are you here? Oh yeah, right. Charlie, Charlie, are you going to leave? Charlie, Charlie, can you leave? Charlie, Charlie, can I go? Charlie, Charlie, are you going to hurt me?
Just like the Ouija board, there's no life inside that block of wood. There's no life inside this piece of paper. These games are just tools for the paranormal beings to speak with you. Things may go very wrong if these beings felt intimidated. Many of you don't understand how powerful jinns can be. Now, of course, setting this up and just chanting Charlie, Charlie will not make this game work. But regardless, even if you were taught how to play, stay away from such games. You do not want to tie yourself around a being you cannot see. This is a true horrifying story of the game Red Door, Yellow Door. This game is pretty simple. You lay down and your partner chants red door, yellow door, any other color door until you enter a trance state. You will see 2 doors. You pick one door. Behind every door there is a room, and in every room there are 2 doors. And the cycle keeps going. All of these paranormal games have origins or a history of how these games started. However, researchers were unable to find any origins of the game Red Door, Yellow Door. This game has several names, such as Black Door, White Door, but one of the names is called The Doors of Your Mind. The difference between both is the Doors of Your Mind is not a game. It is more of a spiritual ritual where you lay down in a dark room, light up candles, and you know what may happen next. Red Door, Yellow Door is just a children's variant of the Doors of Your Mind. However, they both kind of work the same with minor differences. But what are the dangers behind this game? This game plays with hypnosis, which is incredibly dangerous. It is very possible for a player to go into an actual trance state, at which point he or she is under hypnosis, being guided by someone who knows nothing about hypnosis. That's the psychological side of the game. But religiously, if things went wrong during the game, you may cause severe spiritual damage. Oh, fun fact, jinns can easily enter a person's thoughts. Jinns can manipulate your exploration during your trance state. That is why one of the main warnings behind this game is, if you see people behind these doors, avoid talking to them, because that may not be your imagination. And to prove this fact, one of the most common ways jinns get into someone's head is during hypnagogia. Hypnagogia is the transitional state of consciousness between wakefulness and sleep. And in this game, you may feel very uncomfortable during your hypnagogic state. Warning, I'm about to show you a video of a person who went through this state by playing this game, and it did not end very well. This is a true horrifying story of the witch in Jeddah. This story was submitted by Iffat, a Saudi Arabian girl that narrated her aunt's story. The aunt's name is Noura. Noura was in her 20s when she recently got married back in 2003. She had a newborn baby at the time, so she needed help in the house. She hired a nanny from Indonesia that was previously fired from another house in Riyadh. This all started from day one. This Indonesian nanny would help Noura around the house with carrying furniture. She was very petite, but she had the power to lift heavy objects like it was paper. She would also cook food on such a fast pace, it was just not ordinary. And she would spend 4 to 5 hours daily in the guest toilet downstairs. Noura had no idea what was going on. One night, Noura was awakened by loud noises coming from one of the bedrooms late at night. She walked towards the room and had a peek, and she saw something that was terrifying. It was the nanny in the dark, wearing a white mask on her face, chanting gibberish. She saw Noura and she immediately jumped in her bed. The next day, they sent her out to buy some groceries. And while she was out, Noura goes inside her bedroom and inspects her belongings, as she was very suspicious. She found bags of strange leaves. She found reptile skin, fingernails, bags of hair strands, pictures of the Saudi Arabian family she worked for with holes punched through the faces, and a voodoo doll. Noura and her husband contacted the authorities, and they had to act like they didn't see anything. They wanted her paperwork to be prepared for her to leave the country, because if she found out that they know, she will harm them. They eventually tricked her and had her put on a plane with her ritual belongings left in the house. Days later, Noura finds out that this woman also attempted to harm them. She slowly started finding pieces of black magic rituals buried inside and around the house. In the following weeks, they had a sheikh come over and cleanse the house. But what do you think would have happened if she wasn't caught? This is a true horrifying story of a viewer that saw one of my videos and did not take my warning seriously. A TikToker by the name Ali watched the TikTok series that warns viewers about one of the world's most dangerous books, Shams al-Ma'arif. Ali was able to get his hands on an original copy of this book. He disregarded the warnings and he read a small section of the book. This is a quick recap on what this book really is. I posted a few videos explaining the dangers behind this book. One of the parts is part 25. This book was written in Arabic around 800 years ago by an author named Ahmed al-Buni. The book carries black magic rituals that are so dangerous, most of them are not even being performed today. This book was lost and forgotten for all those years, and I spoke about it for the first time in many years. The 3 videos totaled to 13 million views, and some of the viewers ignored the warning. They took the risk and they read the book. Ali is one of them. These are the symptoms Ali faced after reading the book. He read a very small section and he had the Quran playing in his home, and then he heard sudden knocking sounds. He felt something touching his legs, and he claimed that listening to the Quran was not helping his situation. Hours later, he was not able to get up and pray, but he eventually fought the pain. Now, he released 19 videos warning viewers not to read it, and he coded, "You will regret reading this book." He also posted a video of himself dancing and shaking his feet, but he swears to God that this was not him dancing. On day 2, Ali was shivering all day and he was still unable to fight his inner demons. In a lot of his videos, I was tagged by my followers asking me to help the brother out. But you see, this is why I told you to stay away, and you decided not to listen. I explained the consequences and how some things cannot be undone. Only the people who associate with jinns are safe to read this book. You and I, we're not invited. Countless of people have suffered from demonic possession for many years after committing such mistakes. If you're really interested in magic, go read some Harry Potter books, bro. But stay away from this one, because this book can kill you. This is a true horrifying story of what Jahannam really is. Jahannam is hellfire. It is a place of eternal punishment. It is believed amongst all religions. In some religions, like Christianity, hell is a spiritual dimension, so it's only the souls that are tortured in hell. But that's not really the case. Hellfire is a physical place. It does exist. It is a world just like any other world. It has valleys, mountains, and canyons. But it's not only a world. This thing breathes, it roars, it speaks. Hellfire is a beast. Hellfire eats sinners for a living. The more you feed it, the hungrier it gets. It is so big, it is chained by 70,000 chains, and on each chain there are 70,000 angels pulling it. I'm talking about 4.9 billion angels. Do you know how big an angel can be based on Islamic narrations? An angel can tip over a country with the tip of one of its wings. Imagine the size of an angel. Now imagine 4.9 billion of them just struggling to hold down hellfire. Hell has 7 gates, and the guardian angel of hellfire is Malik. Malik is the only angel that never smiled. Let me tell you how terrifying this place is. In hellfire, there are clouds of acid. People that enter are given clothing made from fire. The temperature in there are millions of kelvins, nothing compared to the sun. People in hellfire are privileged in size. God makes them so big. One of their tooth will be the size of Mountain Uhud. Why are they so big, you ask? So they burn slower. You will hear disturbing sounds of screams from people in there. They will beg for food and water, and they will be told to go down to the bottom of hell to find the tree of Zaqum. Zaqum is a fruit made in hellfire. It is so hot, one narration says, if this fruit accidentally dropped on earth, it will burn down the whole globe. They will be given boiling water to drink. The water will be so hot, their faces would melt before they drink it. And if you decide not to drink nor eat, they will force feed you till you have a full stomach. Hellfire is also a place of ambush. There are other creatures in there that will attack you. I'll leave the rest for Mu'min Abu Mecca to explain. I'm not sure how other religions describe it, but in Islam, this is hellfire. And no one can sacrifice themselves for your sins. This is a true horrifying story of a haunted house in Jumeirah 1. This story was submitted by a family, a mom, a dad, and 3 daughters. The story happened in 2016. Jumeirah 1 is an old area in Dubai. Many houses there are old, though they are very expensive, since they're just a 5-minute walk from the beach. This family moved in a new house with a 1-year lease contract. After organizing furniture, they moved in and the 3 daughters picked the rooms they wanted. On the 3rd night, the youngest daughter, aged 10, came to her sisters crying, saying she doesn't want to sleep in her room anymore. When they asked her why, she didn't want to speak. She then slept with them in another room that night. On the 4th night, she comes back at 1 a.m. crying again, but this time, she seemed petrified. She was shivering, begging not to sleep in her bedroom. One of the sisters gets up and walks towards her room. She bends over to get a peek, while the 2 other sisters were staring at her from behind. This sister got paralyzed from waist up. She wanted to scream for help, but she was not able to move a muscle. And her sisters behind her didn't know that she was struggling. She was frozen in her spot. She fell down a few seconds later and she runs to wake up her parents. She was shouting intensely, explaining what just happened. The father gets up and gently goes inside that bedroom as if someone in there was calling him. He goes in and shockingly closes the door behind him. It was a terrifying moment of silence as the whole family waited for the father outside that door. A minute felt like an hour. He comes out with an agitated face and says, "All of you should leave this house now." The mother knew exactly what her husband was going through. She acted normal. She took her daughters and left the house. Never try fixing a situation like this if you're angry. This is the latest update. The father is fine. The daughters are okay. The whole family is safe and happy in a new home. But just to show you how haunted this house is, in 2018, the landlord decided to demolish and rebuild this house. They were 2 weeks behind schedule because 13 deconstructing equipment were damaged during the process. This is a true horrifying story of the moment you will see the angel of death. This is a moment that every human being that ever lived will see. This angel has been mentioned in all the sacred texts, including Sikhism. In Judaism, the name of this angel is Israel. However, in Islam, this angel's name has not been defined, even though many Muslims believe that it is Israel, though it is not the real name. Every religion describes this angel with minor differences, but generally, he is known to do one thing only: Angels are beautiful beings. There are billions of them, or maybe even trillions around us. They are huge, and they are powerful, and they are made from light. However, there are 4 angels that you do not want to meet. Malik, the guardian of hellfire. Munkar and Nakir, the angels that test the faith of the dead in their tombs. And lastly, the angel of death. There is a narration that I'm not 100% sure about, but it says, the angel of death passes by and looks at every human being 5 times a day, waiting for their time to come. And you know these random shivers that you get? It is said to be that this was a moment that the angel of death has looked at you. I am not sure myself, but we can have Mu'min Abu Mecca to confirm if this is true or not. But what I can definitely confirm is this. This is what will happen the moment you see the angel of death. You will go through a sudden moment where time will be frozen. All your surroundings will no longer be your reality. Your brain will start releasing a chemical called DMT. Your eyes will start to unveil the real world. You will see the darkest being ever created approaching you. You will feel unexplainable pain, and you will start to see your soul leave your body. This is a moment billions of people have been through, and you will too. No human being is immortal. One day, in your lifetime, you will meet this angel. This is a true horrifying story of what causes jinns to possess humans. For those who don't know what jinns are, they are the paranormal. They are demons. Some refer to them as evil spirits. Other religions refer these incidents as demonic possessions. Regardless of what religion you follow, a demonic possession is a thing that is mentioned in your books. This episode is not specifically a story, but I will explain the details on how possessions happen. Now remember, there are 3 causes and 4 conditions behind the jinn possession. These are the 3 causes. 1. Oppression, the rarest cause. A jinn will possess you for the simplest reason. He just doesn't like you. Number 2. Love, the ashiq jinn. A jinn can fall in love with a human and start possessing that person. There are reasons behind this. Maybe you spend a lot of time in your house undressed, thinking no one can see you. The jinn is actually staring at you, and some will even be attracted to you. Number 3. Unintentional harm. When you accidentally harm a jinn, an example, you poured boiling water somewhere outside, and it accidentally harmed the jinn. They will seek vengeance. Now these are the 3 causes. What about the conditions? Can jinns possess you at any time, anywhere? No. There are 4 conditions you must meet before a jinn can possess you. Condition 1. Extreme anger. When you're in a state of extreme anger, you are widening the gate for a demonic possession. Condition 2. Excessive fear. Same thing. When you're in a state of extreme fear of your surroundings. Condition 3. A state of excessive heedlessness, not physically, spiritually. And condition 4, pleasure. It is the state of when you are alone, enjoying your desires. You know, when you do what you do while watching inappropriate content. These are the 4 conditions that you need to be in for a jinn to possess you. But these conditions aren't always the case for a demonic possession. They are the states for the jinns to possess you. And they only open a wider gate for demons to use you. Demonic possessions are real, and they are lethal, and they are not easy to treat. Jinns are predators that we cannot see. This is a true horrifying story of the faithful jinn. I've heard many stories similar to this one, and many people have encountered the same incident. To some, it may not be horrific, but to others, this incident is terrifying. The story took place in Saudi Arabia. A man woke up rushing for the Fajr prayer. For non-Muslims, in Islam, we have 5 prayers a day. One of them is called Fajr. It's very early in the morning, and the prayer is made before sunrise. So the guy woke up rushing, and he realized that he missed the Fajr prayer. He was around 10 minutes late, and everybody was already gone, but the masjid gates were still open. It was still dark outside. The man goes in and prays alone. As he was praying, another man comes in that also missed the prayer and joins him. He didn't really pay attention to the man that was praying with him. He just noticed that he seemed a little different. The guy finishes his prayer and goes outside before the other man. He notices that there was only one pair of slippers outside, which was his. He runs back inside to look for the man that prayed with him, but there was no one inside the mosque. In the same evening, he goes back to the same mosque for the Isha prayer. The Isha prayer is the last prayer of the day. He tells the Imam of that mosque the whole story, and the Imam tells him this: "You were 10 minutes late to the Fajr prayer. Do you know what happened during the prayer you missed?" He said, "What?" The Imam says, "Before we started, there were only 2 men behind me. We began praying. After the Fatiha, I heard a crowd of at least 50 men reciting the word Ameen. I was shocked, wondering when did they all arrive. When I finished, I quickly turned my head and looked back, and all I saw were the same 2 men that were there before I started, shivering from fear. These are jinns. They didn't harm anyone. They're just praying." When you go inside a mosque that's empty, it's not really empty. There are other beings that worship the same God we do. This is a true horrifying story. Part 66. This story happened in the early 2000s. It was late at night. A woman was driving in an unfamiliar area. Her car was old and unreliable, and soon she realized that she had to make a stop for gas. Luckily, she came across a gas station in a few minutes. The gas station was very old-fashioned, in the middle of nowhere. But something about this gas station seems very off. Afraid that she might not find another gas station close by, she reluctantly pulled up and she asked an attendant to fill up the tank. The attendant seemed really nervous as he was filling up the tank, but he finished his job. He then moved towards her car window for payment. She hands him the money. He carefully examined it and told her that the bill was a counterfeit or a fake. The attendant explained that he would have to take her back inside in order to call his manager about the counterfeit bill, as it had to be reported to the bank. She got convinced. She goes inside and sits down. The attendant walks towards the station gates and locks the doors. He turns around and tells her the bill is not a counterfeit. At this point, she froze, thinking she's about to get abused. He tells her this: "I had to get you out of the car because there was a man with a hatchet hiding in the back seat." This kind of crime is very common in the West. It is terrifying to realize that you are driving down the highway for a whole hour with another person hiding in your car, waiting for the right moment. This is the longest true horrifying story episode. This episode is worth the time. The story took place in Nador, Morocco in the year 2015. The story was submitted by Ilyas. Back in 2015, Ilyas was an 18-year-old Moroccan Muslim that lived in Norway. One night, Ilyas was back in Morocco visiting family, and he stayed up late watching a movie at home till 3 in the morning. The living room was very warm, so he got up to open the window for fresh air. As he was at the window, being at the fourth floor in that building, he looks down, and the street was dark and empty, but there was one man wearing black from head to toe with a hood covering his face. He wasn't sure why that man was outside at that time. He looked away, but then peeked one last time out of curiosity. When he looked at him again, the man had his hands on a building's wall. He was strangely just feeling the wall, and out of nowhere, the man vanishes through that wall. He rubbed his eyes in disbelief after what he just witnessed. Ilyas swears that there was no door in that spot. It was just physically impossible. He forgets about this after a while and then flies back to Norway. 6 months later, in Norway, Ilyas experiences his first ever sleep paralysis, which in Islam is known as Jathum. He vividly remembers having a conversation with a dark figure, and his mom also witnessed him speak in his sleep. He woke up after the paralysis with swollen feet and rashes all over his body. They rushed to the ER, and none of the doctors could diagnose what caused his body to react that way. He was finally discharged after treatment, but after that day, Ilyas was never the same person. He always acted differently. He was antisocial. He was distant from people. And his mom always told him that he needed ruqya. A few months later, they fly back to Morocco for the next holiday season. He was always against his mother's ruqya idea. However, he decided to fight his thoughts and do it. He had a cousin that was also suffering, and she visited Araqi in Morocco quite regularly. So they went together with both of their moms. When they reached, they sat down and waited for their session. Ilyas could hear the Raqi in the other room, and he felt extremely uneasy and started to sweat. The Quran recitation, the ruqya, the sounds, made him not even want to look at that direction. He was angry. He went outside for a moment to gain back his senses until their turn finally reached. The Raqi called them in and started. Ilyas's cousin immediately started reacting horribly when the Quran started. She was screaming so loud. Ilyas started losing senses throughout his entire body. He was sweating, he was unable to move, and he was shouting from fear. He does pray, and he does read Quran, but he was so confused as to why he was screaming. He felt like he was being tortured. The slightest pinch from the Raqi felt like it was a knife stab. It was very powerful, and this is where he felt a jinn's presence inside of him. The following night was the most horrific night for Ilyas. For a whole week, the man was not able to sleep alone, and he would get mentally abused by these demons haunting him. Weeks go by. Ilyas started getting demonic thoughts of harming his own family. He hated everyone. When he would look at his own sister, her face would seem distorted to him. He knows these beings are playing with his head. His whole life turned upside down. He would regularly think of harming his own family, but luckily, he never did. A few months later, Ilyas was back in Norway and life was back to normal. He was relieved that he was in a good state of mind and that the horror was over. At the time, he worked at a local grocery store. After a Christmas celebration at work, which he did not participate in, it was late at night. He was walking one of his colleagues back home from work. She was a young woman and she was scared to walk alone. After they reached outside her place, she asked him, "Where's that other girl that was with us?" "What girl?" Ilyas asked. "There was no one there. It was just you and I." She swore that there was another woman with black hair, pale skin, standing next to him the whole time, staring at Ilyas's colleague with anger. Even though this entity gave Ilyas a break, this jinn was still around, haunting everyone that has intentions towards Ilyas. This is a true horrifying story about Ya'juj wa Ma'juj, which are also known as Gog and Magog. In part 37, I explained about who Ya'juj wa Ma'juj really are. If you did not watch part 37, please go watch it before watching this episode. I previously mentioned that you do not need to be a Muslim to believe in Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. They are mentioned in all the sacred texts and all religions. These people are isolated from all civilizations, and they will come out one day, and they will rape, kill, and murder everyone. No army will be able to beat them. Ya'juj wa Ma'juj will be released only after the death of the Dajjal. Prophet Isa alayhi salam, also known as Jesus, will be around when this happens. He will be among us, and he will be notified that there is a qawm, a creation that has been released. Take your people and hide in the mountains of Al-Tur, because you will not be able to beat them. They are too many. They will pass by a lake called Tabariya, and they will drink it all. The last ones who reach the lake will say, "There was water here once upon a time." That's how many they are. They will start fighting and killing everyone until the whole world is conquered. They will shout, "We have killed the inhabitants of the world," but they don't know that Isa and his companions are hiding. "Let us now kill the inhabitants of the skies." They will aim their arrows to the sky and start shooting. Their arrows will return with blood on them, and they will say, "We are now the kings of earth." Isa and his companions will suffer from hunger. They are hiding in the mountains for God knows how long, until one day a worm disease will spread and kill Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. They will all die together instantly. One narration says, there will be so many carcasses of Ya'juj wa Ma'juj, nowhere you will walk on earth will not stench. God will send rain for days to clean the land, and then it will only be a matter of time till the day of judgment. This is a true horrifying story of one of the most haunted dolls. This story took place in 2013. A family purchased an Elsa doll from Disney's movie Frozen. The doll recited phrases from the movie Frozen and sang "Let It Go" when a button on its necklace was pressed. For 2 years, it did that in English. In 2015, this doll started alternating between Spanish and English. There wasn't a button that changed these. It was just random, as the mother stated. The mother says the doll would randomly speak and sing, even with its switch turned off. But the creepiest thing about this all is that this family owned this doll for more than 6 years and never changed its batteries. The family wasn't concerned at the time. They assumed that this was a programming glitch. In December of 2019, that's 6 years later, the daughters reached a point where they were afraid of the doll, as it caused disturbing noises randomly at night. The mother decided to throw the doll away. Weeks later, they found it inside a bench in their living room. The kids insisted that they didn't put it there. It was too deep inside the garbage for the children to reach in and bring it back. At that point, Elsa ceased to sing the English rendition of "Let It Go," all together speaking only Spanish when pressed. The family decided to double bag this bizarre doll and place it at the bottom of the garbage, which then will get taken out on garbage day. The trash was taken. They went on a trip that day, but when they returned, Elsa too had to come back and was waiting in the backyard of their home. This is a real picture. They knew this was not a programming glitch. A jinn is using this doll as a tool to disturb this family. This is real footage of the doll returning for the second time after being thrown away twice.
Dentro del castillo. Soy la princesa Elsa de Arden. Jugamos otra vez. Mira el cielo, ha brillado el momento.
This is a true horrifying story that took place in Somalia in the year 1998. Adil, a young man from Somalia, worked in a goat farming business in Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia. One day, Adil had orders in the city of Barbara. He had to drive there to buy sheep and goats. Barbara is a very long drive from the capital. During the road trip, he had to find a place to stay for the night. He found an abandoned house, very cheap to rent because it had no electricity. He paid the taker to spend the night there. He took off to buy some cigarettes and dinner for himself, and he went back to this abandoned house. He had a candle with him for some light inside the house while having dinner. After dinner, Adil goes outside and starts his car. Late at night, he puts a cassette in the car, leaves the door open, and plays music. Cassettes were used in most cars back in the 90s for music. Outside the car, he lights up a cigarette and vibes to the music in pitch darkness. Time goes by, and suddenly the music stops out of nowhere. As he turns towards the car, the door of the car slams shut. He assumed it could have been the wind. He takes the cassette out, flips it, and puts it back inside. Right before lighting his next cigarette, the music stops again. As he turns towards the car, the door slams shut. At this point, whatever happened caught Adil's attention. He takes his torch, walks around, and starts reading his prayers. A few meters behind the house, he notices a woman covered from head to toe. He couldn't see clearly. The torch wasn't strong enough, but as he got closer, this being expands. It got bigger after every step he took. He runs towards the car. He tries to start the car, but the car won't start. He knew that this house is haunted. These were jinns. He is now stuck inside his car. He looks at the rear view mirror and he sees the same dark figure behind him. Adil is in a very bad situation. For 5 minutes straight, this figure did not move a muscle. A minute felt like an hour. His throat started drying out from fear, and there was nothing he can do. He stayed in his car, begging and praying to God till the sun came up. Hours go by. He opens his eyes, starts his car, and drives back to Mogadishu, leaving everything behind. This is a true horrifying story, part 71. In episode 4 and episode 47, I talked about one of the world's most haunted destinations, Al-Qasimi Palace. And just yesterday, I visited this palace. My colleagues from NAS News Arabia and I were trying to get a filming permit in this palace for several weeks, and we finally got it. We took our filming equipment and we visited the palace. This palace was abandoned since 1985, and ever since, no one was able to live here because of the recurrent paranormal events that take place inside. At first, when we reached, we were just messing around, thinking that most of the stories were just rumors. After sunset, visitors were not allowed to visit the palace. It was just us. And that's where things started taking a turn. While the guys were taking B-roll footage for the news coverage, I noticed a room. Something in the corner of my eye caught my attention. I felt like someone was sitting down, staring at me. I ignored the uneasy feeling I got, and we head upstairs and continued our work. We went inside a room, not touching anything at all. Carlo, my colleague, pulls a joke and says, "Jinns, you can come out now, don't be shy." And I kid you not, this happens.
Oh shit. Bro, this is not us, bro. Wallah al-azim,
Unfortunately, I didn't get the shot of when it happened. A painting that was hung for more than 30 years falls down, almost injuring Carlo after what he said. We were asked to immediately leave the room and leave the portrait as it is. We went to another bedroom and we noticed a special antique painting. My team set up the equipment and started filming. I was using my phone documenting my filming crew until we experienced this.
I'm gonna take a facial over here. See? I don't know.
The door leads to an empty pantry with no other access. The door was locked and we were certain that there was no one inside. I kept documenting my filming crew in case it happens again, and as expected, it happens again.
Bro.
About 20 minutes after this incident, Carlo was not feeling good at all. He felt cold, disturbed, and unwelcomed.
Huh?
Let's go home.
What?
I'm not feeling good.
You're not feeling good?
Yeah.
Why?
He was acting very strange. We took all our things and left the palace for good. For paranormal enthusiasts, I'd recommend visiting this palace during the day. Do not go at night. Al-Qasimi Palace is not a joke. This is a true horrifying story that took place in Pakistan. This story was submitted by Amna. In the early 2000s, a young Pakistani man worked in the Jinnah International Airport in Karachi. He would always ride his motorcycle to work and he only did night shifts. One night, he finished his duty, hopped on his bike, and started driving home. All the roads were empty as it was past midnight. As he was driving, he saw a woman sitting on the edge of the road, crying. He was hesitant to approach, but he felt bad and approached her anyways. He asks, "Is everything okay?" She says, "I forgot my way home. Can you take me?" He says, "Of course." The woman hops on the back seat of the motorcycle and he starts driving down. The woman in the back seat starts sharing stories to this man. She tells him stories about the Pakistan and India partition in 1947 and how many people suffered and died during that era. And she would tell these stories very vividly, as if she lived back in these times. Moments later, she points at a deserted area on the side of the highway and she says, "This is where I died." He looks at her hand as she points and he realizes that this isn't an ordinary human being. His spine shivers from fear. He jumps off his motorcycle at a very high speed. He starts running with his injured arms and legs. He looks behind to see if the woman is behind him, and there she was, standing still from a distance without a single scratch. He luckily sees a police car approaching and he loses his mind. He explains everything to the police officer while the woman still stands and stares at him from a distance. The second he gets inside the police car, the woman vanishes. What could this be? Who is this woman? This is a true horrifying story. Part 73. This story took place in Argentina in 2022. This is by far the creepiest incident that I have ever seen caught on tape. There's a security guard in a hospital working on a late night shift. The hospital was very quiet. No patients were coming in around that time. At 3 a.m. sharp, the automatic doors open up front as the security guard was sitting down. He gets up and greets the patient that came in. He grabs the registration papers from his desk and he walks up towards the patient to have them fill out the papers. As the security guard fills out the paper for the patient, he goes and he grabs a wheelchair. It seemed like the patient was in pain or maybe not able to walk. And then, as the patient sits down on the chair, he pushes the patient towards the examination rooms. But you see, there's a plot twist to all of this. There was no patient. The security guard was talking to someone that was not visible on camera. This is the CCTV footage of what happened in the hospital in Argentina. Look at the doors sliding open. He clearly sees someone before he gets up. He asks them for the information or the reason for their visit. He proceeds to tell them to come inside. And then he walks and grabs the wheelchair for them. What kind of being is this man speaking to? Could this possibly be a jinn? What do you guys think? This is a true horrifying story about the red wristband. Before I jump to the story, I want to wish everybody Ramadan Kareem. This story was published by an anonymous author in May 17th of 2008. When we get admitted in a hospital, we are given this white wristband. It usually has our name on it, our birth date, our section, and sometimes the doctor's name. But there are other different colored wristbands. Blue, green, yellow, and sometimes pink. Different colors symbolize different things. For example, the red wristband, patients with allergies wear them. However, in some hospitals, they're only placed on dead people. Back in 2008, a forensic pathologist on a late night shift just finished examining a deceased woman. On his way down to the basement, he got in the elevator and there was one woman inside with him. As the elevator descended, he was chatting with this woman inside. She seemed friendly. The elevator stops midway and the gates open. An old woman was approaching the elevator, and in a very rude manner, the doctor slams the close button so that the woman approaching does not come inside. The woman that was with the doctor in the elevator was shocked, and she asked why he did not let the other woman in. The doctor said, "That was the woman I just operated on. She died during the procedure. Did you not see the red wristband that she was wearing?" The woman smiled and raised her arm. Something like this. This is a true horrifying story that took place in Ras Al Khaimah, the United Arab Emirates. This story was so mysterious that government authorities of Ras Al Khaimah had to get involved. In 2018, an Emirati named Adil Al-Zaabi was out with his friends all night. He was 22 back at the time. He was going out every single night. Comes back home very late in the morning and barely used to see his family. His mother calls him one night, worried about where he's been all these days. She tells him to come back home early. He disrespected his own mother and hangs up the phone. When he reaches home, he sees his mother and she asks him again why he's been gone for days. He cusses at his own mother, yells at her, disrespects her, and goes to his room. He turns on his shower. He locks his toilet door. Midway through his shower, his lights turn off. He starts yelling, thinking someone is playing games with him. In pitch darkness, inside the shower, he feels a grip on his neck. He gets pushed towards the wall, not able to move at all, and he gets whipped on his back multiple times. He tried to yell, he tried to scream, he tried to move, nothing. Hit after hit. He hears an old man's voice telling him, "How dare you do this to your mother? Smack. I will take your life if you do this again." Lash after lash for 2 whole minutes. He unlocks the door, runs for his life, with no clothes on, from how feared he was. He begs his mother for forgiveness. The family immediately calls the ambulance. Adil was severely injured and he was bleeding everywhere. I have the real image of his wounds, but TikTok will not allow me to show this graphic content. The police were involved, detectives were involved, psychiatrists were also involved. The government was accusing the family of domestic violence. The police searched the whole house. He swore to them that it was not his family. This case took many years to dissolve, but only the mother knows what this thing was. They were jinns that protected her, and they wanted to teach Adil a lesson. This is a true horrifying story, part 76. This story took place in Dubai very recently. There's a group of young Emirati guys that contributed money to rent a villa in a community in Dubai. They pretty much wanted to co-rent a house so they can spend time together on the weekends. So they rented this villa. They were playing games, partying, doing wrong things, bringing girls over, stuff like that. On a normal weekend, one of these guys named Ahmed started talking to a local girl recently. After a couple of tries, he finally convinces her to come over. Before she arrived, he tells his friends not to come upstairs as he would be in one of the bedrooms with this girl. When she arrived, he immediately takes her upstairs and locks the bedroom door. In 30 minutes exactly, all the guys downstairs hear drastic screaming coming from upstairs. They see Ahmed running down the stairs, completely naked with no clothes on, scared for his life. They ask him, "What is going on?" He stutters in fear, saying, "Get out of this house, all of you." They thought he was playing some sort of prank until they see the girl run down the stairs, also with no clothes on. She was screaming with a man's voice, telling Ahmed to come back. It wasn't her normal voice. It sounded raspy and very manly. They all run outside, and one of Ahmed's friends takes his pants off and gives it to Ahmed so he can cover up. They start running and knocking on neighbors' doors in panic because calling the police will not help the situation. Maybe because there was something inside the house they didn't want the police to see. There was an Emirati neighbor nearby that allowed them to stay in his home until they figured out a solution. As they explained the story to this neighbor, Ahmed sneaks outside and sees this girl completely dressed up in her clothes, conscious and not knowing what is going on. He yells at her from a distance, saying, "Stay away from me. Don't come any closer. I want nothing to do with you." She cries in pain, not knowing what she did. She asks him, "Why are you standing far from me?" He told her to leave. She cries and begs him to drop her home because she didn't even know where she was. This was a ashiq jinn that possessed this girl, and this jinn did not allow another man to do the dirty with her. If someone wanted to be a hero while these things were happening, something very bad could have happened and lives could have been taken.